Hi, Gavin. It's great to see you.
Hello, and well, it's very nice to be talking to you from a rather wet United Kingdom. But anyway, we've got interesting news.
We have what an incredible night. I am delighted to be here with Gavin Esler, renowned journalist, author, but also a columnist for The National. And we are, of course, waking up to, for those of us who have slept, the news of the seismic change in the British political landscape. There aren't too many surprises, but there are very, very important developments that have happened overnight. The British public certainly has spoken, and we see the end of conservative rule after 14 years and the start of a new era of labor law rule rather than law. So, Gavin, tell me, what are your reactions to the election results that we've seen so far?
Well, it is seismic. You're absolutely right. Labour have worked incredibly hard to look sensible and ready for government, but they have been greatly helped by the Conservative Party falling apart in front of our eyes. This was an election in which uh, anyone but the Conservatives, it seems, managed to do quite well. Anyone but the Conservatives. And so people were looking for a new home. Just for example, there are now no Conservative seats in Wales. There's been half a wipeout in England. In Scotland, the Conservative leader, Douglas Ross, lost his seat to the Scottish National Party, even though the Scottish National Party lost a lot of other seats to the Labour Party. So, and the Liberal Democrats did very well. They got, I think, about 71 seats now. There's still places, there's some places still counting. So it was, in a sense, although it's a Labour triumph, it was also anyone but the Conservatives, including the far-right Reform Party of Nigel Farage.
So let's start with that historic conservative loss. Why? Why did the conservatives lose so badly?
The I think there's three reasons. The first one is that people want to change, and Labour were able to capitalize on it. That was their slogan, one word, change. Because things are going very badly. The economy is not great. We have got more food banks than ever before. We have got railway systems that don't seem to work. We've got the National Health Service not working very well, despite the fact there's so many wonderful people in it. So that's one thing. The other thing was that people not just became tired of the Conservatives. It's not just about policy. Sometimes as a voter, it's very difficult to work out what should we do about tax or how do you turn the National Health Service around? And that is Keir Starmer's problem for the future. But it's not very difficult for a voter to recognise that when the rest of us are locked up because of coronavirus, Boris Johnson having alcohol parties and Downing Street is appalling conduct. And there have been, I can't go through all the scandals because I can't remember them, but there have been scandal after scandal, including most recently news that some people within the Conservative Party were betting on the outcome or the date of an election, which is just, I don't even think it's illegal, but it's just, you just don't do that, do you? So people form a judgment about the kind of people that are ruling us, and they decided they didn't like the Conservatives on any level.
Your point about the latest scandal with senior advisors betting on the election date when they knew what direction the prime minister was going, to then have conservative members of parliament say, we should ban this by law. It's like, you don't need a law. It's just general, common sense, but also decency. And to your point, I think there was just a sense of who are these people and why are they running the country?
The worst thing you can say about a politician is he or she is just not like us, just not like a normal person. And unfortunately, actually, through British history, we've had just under 60 prime ministers, a third of whom went to Eton, one school, and half of whom went to Oxford, one university. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but they don't look like us. And we've had a succession of failures, including Liz Truss and others, that people really think of as being a major turning point. People have asked themselves, how did that person get in charge? How do these people who behave so badly that you wouldn't accept in your own family, how did they end up in positions of power? So that counted.
And it was also quite interesting to have had a number of prime ministers who ended up in Downing Street not through an election. So tell us a bit about that. How much did that weaken the conservative prime minister, whoever they are, since they were coming as a result of internal dispute rather than an election?
Hugely. I've written a book about this, so I can bore on for the next 2 hours about it. But essentially, it's not just that we get bad people. We get bad people because the system permits it. And the system is very much open for abuse. We don't have a written constitution. We have the Conservatives allowed Rishi Sunak to be elected as Prime Minister essentially by acclamation within MPs. But before that, Liz Truss was elected by Conservative Party members. But only 81,000 of them voted for her. And you have to be, forgive me, but you have to be quite an odd person to join a political party in Britain these days. Most of us don't. So you've got 81,000 people which wouldn't even fill Wembley Stadium, self-selected, who pay £2 a month for the privilege of being a Conservative member. So the system is nutty. It's absolutely crazy. And so it's not surprising we get failed leaders if we have a failed system, which is what I think we have. And whether Labour will tackle it, that's going to be another matter, but it's way down the pipeline for them.
I want to come back to priorities for Labour. And as you said, they've got so much on their list. I don't know if they're going to come to political party reform or parliamentary reform, which is always a hot topic of discussion in certain circles, but very difficult to achieve in the UK. But I want to talk about other parties. Conservatives, as you said, really the biggest loser of the night, Labour the biggest winner. But then there are the other parties. We can no longer really think of the UK as a two-party system alone. So talk us through what this means for the Liberal Democrats, because they've had a comeback.
The Liberal Democrats have done brilliantly, and their leader did quite a clever thing, actually. He did talk about policy, but he did a lot of stunts. He jumped out of aircraft. He did bungee jumping. He did some dad dancing. You know, he made himself look not a fool, just like a dad or like somebody that you could relate to. And people were looking for a home in safe Conservative seats where Labour had no chance. And they chose the Liberal Democrats. And in fact, there was a theory they might even become the opposition party and eclipse the Conservatives. So Ed Davey, as their leader, has done extremely well, it seems to me. And the other party, which has done very badly, of course, is the Scottish National Party in Scotland, because in a way, people have become tired of them in government. So they're in government in Scotland. I would suggest to you, though, that if you are in England, where I am, and looking at Scotland, you would be wrong to think the idea of Scottish independence has gone away. It's always been supported by more than 40% of people, but always just less than 50% of people. And I don't think that will change. But the final thought I would suggest is it's interesting that the English Conservative Party is the English Conservative Party. They have people in, but they don't have any MPs in Northern Ireland or in Wales. And they're an endangered species in Scotland as we speak. So it is very much an English party, and they are fighting English issues. And that is one reason why Labour scored, because they're a party that does represent most of the places in the United Kingdom.
Now, another party that feels very English is the Reform Party of Nigel Farage. So he's done better than others expected, but also the polling clearly said that he would be able to enter Parliament, his 8th try, but also bring in other candidates. So what does the Reform Party mean for the UK? And if you're not familiar with British politics, what does Nigel Farage represent? What does Reform represent?
Well, Nigel Farage was one of the architects of Brexit. He ran UKIP, United Kingdom Independence Party. He was an MEP, but he never got into Westminster. He then ran the Brexit Party. He's now renamed it Reform, and he owns it. It's like a company. He owns the party. It's quite extraordinary. And they are, I don't know whether we call them far right, but they're certainly to the right of the Conservatives. And some of the Conservatives are quite right wing. They have, just to give you one example, and this is not good news for Labour. I am sitting here on the Kent coast, and this is an area where migration has become a huge issue for obvious reasons, the boats coming in. The MP for Dover is now Labour. He's Mike Tapp. He got about 19,000 votes. But if you add the Reform vote to the Conservative vote, together they got 21,000 votes. But because they split the right-wing vote, Mike Tapp is the MP for Dover. Now, that is a real problem, not just for the Conservatives. It's a real problem for Labour itself, because the right of centre vote, if they were to coalesce around one candidate, who knows, because the Conservatives are in such a mess at the moment. But if they coalesce around one candidate, Labour would be in trouble in that constituency.
That's a very important detail, because you're right about the splitting of the votes, the right-wing vote, and also Farage will be crunching those numbers and going to the Conservative Party and saying, you need me, at a time when actually the Conservatives, it's hard to see who's going to be the leader of the party, what Rishi Sunak will decide to do. So that's a story that will continue to develop, I think, as we see how the opposition reorganizes itself against a very healthy Labour majority. Your point about Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and England, you've also warned that the future of Britain could be bleak as a united kingdom, that we could see a breakup of the country. You've written a book about that, you've spoken passionately about that. Given the results that we've had, do you think that the UK is in that danger now? Or do you think the change that Labour is promising, and Keir Starmer has used that word as the key word in his campaign, change the Labour Party, he will change the UK, Britain, can that change actually stop the United Kingdom facing a real threat of breaking up?
Well, I do a book tour. I'm off to Dartington Hall this weekend to do another talk about the book. And one of the things I always ask people is, at the end of World War One, Germany lost a huge amount of land, didn't it, at the Treaty of Versailles? Well, you taught that at school, and everybody was. And I say, how much land did the United Kingdom, as then constituted, lose? And everybody goes, none. Well, actually, Germany lost 13% of land under the Treaty of Versailles in 1919. The United Kingdom then lost 22% of its land because 26 counties of the Irish Republic, as it is now, seceded. Northern Ireland has got 6 Sinn Féin MPs now. Sinn Féin, as we know, were the inheritors of the Irish Republican Army and years of trouble. So, in my view, Northern Ireland is partway out of the exit door, and Brexit exacerbated this because it's created a border on the island of Ireland, which was taken away effectively in the 1990s. So that's a problem. I think Scottish independence is in abeyance, and the Labour Party will work very, very hard, it seems to me, to keep Scotland within the Union. But it won't go away either. And if the SNP are out of government, in Scotland, or a diminished status in Scotland, that will give them a sense of grievance, which is always, I'm Scottish, believe me, I know, we have a sense of grievance about the Anglo-centric nature of British politics, that all the powers in Westminster. And actually, English people are waking up to this now too. So the big cities in England are saying, we need more power. Why is it all decided in Westminster? What's wrong with Liverpool deciding more about Liverpool and Newcastle deciding more about Newcastle? So there's so much on the plate of Keir Starmer. It's going to be very interesting to see what he does immediately.
So Brexit, you mentioned Brexit. During the campaign, we hardly heard of Brexit. And Keir Starmer said publicly that he doesn't think the UK will renegotiate and enter into the European Union in his lifetime, which is telling. Do you think Brexit as a discussion, that relationship with Europe is on pause now? Do you think that Labour will work to at least try to rectify some of the elements that were broken, even if it's not a return to, single market or a return to the European Union as an actual member?
Well, I talked to quite a few Labour Party politicians in the past year, and they all essentially said, don't talk about Brexit. We just don't want to talk about Brexit, because what they didn't want to do was refight the 2016 referendum. And I completely understand that. I was disappointed personally that Keir Starmer didn't just say, look, we've got so much on our plate, we're just going to have a better relationship with the European Union. That seems to me all he needs to say. And I think you never know, he may say that quite soon. But having ruled out membership, what is he ruling in? And I'm not clear what that is, because some people think, and I'm one of them, that there are ways of becoming, within the single market itself, or there's a lot of things that could be done that would ease tensions. And he could say he's doing it for the sake of keeping the United Kingdom united, because the border between Northern Ireland and the Irish Republic has become an issue again, and it would be really good for everyone, whatever your politics, to defuse that, because we don't want to go back to the Troubles where 3,000 people were killed.
Final question for you, Starmer. As you said, the new government is going to have a lot it needs to work through. What do you envision the first 100 days will be like, and what are those priorities?
Busy is the first thing. Keir Starmer will probably never be as powerful as he is now. So if he's got some really big things to say, he should get them out of the way quite quickly, even if they're unpopular. And the whole question about tax and spend is a real issue, and he's sort of fudged it, actually. He could make the case for more taxes. We know where Britain is broken, and he could do it subtly. So this public sphere in the United Kingdom is in serious difficulty. It's everything from universities, which are a great part of our cultural power, that are in financial difficulty, to potholes in the roads, which everybody talks about. Everybody talks about it. So, and the National Health Service. Can you get a National Health Service dentist? No, you can't really. So that's what he's going to address, I think. The stuff that he ran on, the stuff that people care about, and the other things, which are the bigger picture matters, exactly how you're going to deal with the European Union. What do you do in the long term about the British economy? And how do you get back to a green agenda? Because he lost some votes. I mean, the Green Party did all right, actually, in this election. What are you going to do about that? Those are maybe not the first 100 days, let's put it that way.
And that's us not even touching foreign policy and the developments of the world. In just a few days, it is the NATO summit in Washington. Keir Starmer will be representing the United Kingdom as head of government. Will be interesting. We'll have a new foreign secretary. At this moment, we don't know who the foreign secretary is. The shadow foreign secretary is David Lammy, but we'll see if that's the way that Starmer continues to run the government. So for us, at the national, of course, we're covering all the elements of, how did the Gaza war affect the vote? Really interesting that there are 3 independents that have come to parliament who took a very strong position on Gaza, and we're not happy with Labour's position on it. We have the first British Yemeni member of parliament, so a British MP of Yemeni descent. So it's an interesting change on those levels of how foreign policy is going to be handled by this Labour Party. It's not the Corbyn Labour Party, but neither is it really Tony Blair's Labour Party. So what Keir Starmer's Labour Party does with foreign policy will be something that we'll cover in depth at the National. Gavin, thank you for making the time this morning. I always love your insights on the United Kingdom, so it's great to speak to you.
Thank you. It's been lovely to talk to you and our audience. Thank you.
And we look forward to your columns on what this government can do.
I look forward to them too.
Thanks, Gavin.
Thank you.